Hi viewers, this is Syed Asif Ali with your favorite program Let's Talk, and today we have with the Australian Senior Trade and Investment Commissioner Nicola. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. I know that you have a very busy schedule. You are just for one day in Islamabad, and you have given us this opportunity to talk to you. So we should start the program. I have first question with you. That Pakistan is a country at the cross border of South, Central, and West Asia. What opportunities it offers in terms of trade and investment for Australian companies and Australian businessmen?
Well, I think you've hit on a really important point that Australia recognises that all of South Asia is growing really rapidly. We're seeing a lot of dynamism in the economies in the region, whether in Pakistan, whether in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and India. And Australia is very excited about that. The world globally is looking for growth. We've seen a number of economic slowdowns in other parts of the markets. And when you look at South Asia, it really is a bit of a beacon in terms of the growth potential. And Pakistan is really a core element of that, both in terms of the young population that you have, as well as the enormous untapped economic potential that exists here in the market. And Australian business is very interested to see how it can work in that space and bring the experience that we've gained in other parts of Asia into Pakistan, and to see how we can contribute to that future growth and indeed benefit from it.
Okay, so how you see the how much Pakistan has the potential for the Australian business community? Although there are many problems in Pakistan like terrorism and security reasons, but we have a lot of opportunities for the businessmen. But I have seen that very few Australian companies are working here, and those who are working, they have gone back. Is there any opportunity for them still? And you are working over that?
Yeah, look, I think there certainly is. And you're right that it's been a market that people have been slow in coming to over the years, but I think we're seeing a change in that area right across South Asia. So if to give you an example, in January this year, we had over 450 companies that went into India around an Australian Business Week in India. Now, I think even 18 months ago, that would have been very hard to envisage. But what we have seen is that there's a growing interest in looking at the region and seeing what the opportunities are. And Australian businesses are starting to vote with their feet and to really come into the market to explore the opportunities. So in Pakistan, we've seen that manifest itself in a number of different ways, particularly in the education sector. We've had a number of Australian companies coming in here in order to look at how to partner with Indian players, and as well as to attract research collaborations and students into the Australian market. And in the agri-tech sector, we've seen a growing number of Australian companies looking to try and scope out the opportunities here, particularly around areas such as dairy management, where we have a really strong track record and where we think there's a lot of future growth, as well as in areas like food franchising, where we have companies like Gloria Jeans that have come into the market and are doing very good work here.
Okay, as you have discussed the Australian Business Week India, it was a very big event. You had your trade minister was there, for almost 450 delegates from 14 different groups, different business groups were there, and it was a very big activity. So what was the outcome of that? What you got from that?
Well, I think the outcomes were a number, apart from a few extra grey hairs from trying to organise the logistics for 450 companies across 8 different cities over 5 days. I can tell you the team was working very hard to make sure all of that came together. But some of the outcomes we saw in terms of actual deals were right across the different spectrum. We had 14 different streams of activity, and in each of those we saw good tangible contracts being signed. But for me, in addition to that, what was really important was the understanding of the market that the Australian businesses were able to build. Because unless you understand how the markets operate here, unless you build the relationships and start to have some real trust and credibility, then I think it's very hard to create long-term sustainable success. So I could give you a whole list of sort of particular deals, but what I think the long-term benefit of these kind of delegations is to actually build a sort of a literacy, if you like, in the Australian business world about how to do business in South Asia, and use that to actually then make sure that we build the linkages and the opportunities through delegations in both directions, as well as through using a lot of other media, such as sort of the digital media, like the Youth TV channel that exists that we're talking through today, to really help to promote the specific opportunities.
Okay, I have seen that whenever you have a good relations with any country, as we have very good relations with China, we have very good relations with Turkey. When their prime minister comes, when the head of the state comes, there have big business groups come to that country with the prime minister and the president. As in Turkey, when the Turkish prime minister was here, there were 250 delegates from different groups over here, and there was a B2B meeting. Is there any future prospects for Australia and Pakistan that they will come together closely and we will have such type of meetings, such type of business deals with each other? Do you have any plan in your mind? Because Pakistan is a big economy.
Absolutely. It's a big economy and it's very attractive in many dimensions. I think that what we are starting to see is maybe not, one big delegation, but a number of smaller delegations that are starting to come in. And again, this is not really about how many companies come in one go, but the kind of business deals that we're starting to see coming through. So we have some delegations that are going from Pakistan to Australia in November, and we're working very hard with them around areas from handicrafts and textiles through to IT services. And at the same way, we're seeing delegations coming in here. We have an education delegation coming in October, which is looking at developing new linkages with the universities here. And then we're looking at other delegations coming in the agri-tech area as well. So I think sometimes whilst the Big Bang effect may create more media headlines, it's actually smaller, more focused delegations that can actually sit around the table with entrepreneurs and business people here in Pakistan to actually create new business and new opportunities, new jobs and new exports, which are really going to make the difference for us both.
Yes, I know. I have seen, as I am working from Australian High Commissioner from last almost 6-7 years, I know that you are working very slowly, but gradually we are improving our relation with Australia. And Australian companies, Australian High Commissioners, you have a cricket diplomacy. Many times you have the cricket matches between the diplomats and the politicians. I have seen that. What are the prospects in education sector specifically? You had an agreement almost 4 to 5 days back. Your representatives are from 4 different universities were in Islamabad and they had an agreement with HEC. So how you see the future of Pakistan and Australia in education sector?
Well, I think it's one of the exciting areas of the relationship and one that I think has the opportunity to grow in a number of different ways. So traditionally what we've seen is Australian universities working here to attract students to come into Australia to do their postgraduate studies. And indeed we have about 15,000 Pakistani students studying in Australia at the moment. And generally, I think they would say that they've had a fantastic time and the quality of education they get is excellent and equips them very well for when they come back into the marketplace. So we've been working with the alumni when they've come back in to really help to stay engaged with them, share with them opportunities for research collaborations, for new entrepreneurship opportunities, and help them to do networking with Australian businesses who are coming through here. So we have a LinkedIn site that we launched just under 12 months ago. We have over 1,000 of our alumni already registered on that site. And I think that's a great example of how we can continue to deliver value for students once they come back here into the market. So that's one way in which we've done the collaboration. What we're seeing now is, I think, a trend towards broadening that into research collaborations. So we've seen a number of our universities coming over here to look to partner with institutions in order to do joint collaboration work that helps to raise the profile and the rankings of both our universities, but more importantly, it helps to address problems specific to Pakistan in a collaborative manner. So that's another element of the relationship which is blossoming. More interesting, I think, in terms of the future is looking at the vocational skills area. So Pakistan has a huge need in order to skill up its workforce, particularly given what a young population you have. It's a very exciting youth dividend that you have at the moment, and the onus is really on you to make sure that you can really capture that, and training is going to be a large part of that work. So what we're starting to look at is how we can introduce innovative methods of in-market delivery. So if I can give an example of some work that we're doing in some other markets, what we've been looking at, for example, is top-up training for doctors and nurses. So the basic qualification will be done here in Pakistan, but in order to be able to keep on top of the latest changes in technology, it's important for doctors and nurses to keep an ongoing education.
In the specialization.
And in specialisation, exactly, as well, into maybe areas like geriatrics or into emergency and critical care. So at the moment, a lot of the opportunities to do that involve having to get onto an aeroplane and fly over to the US or Australia and the UK and undertake a sort of an intensive course. That's naturally very expensive, and it also means that people have to take time out from their work, which is not always possible in today's environment. So what we've been doing is to look at what we would call some blended learning options, where some of our universities have offered the courses. They use a combination of some virtual lectures that people can tune into, as well as some coursework that they deliver in partnership with a local provider. And then they have an invigilated exam in the marketplace at the end. And then the people who've completed the course actually get a formal Australian certification. Now that can be delivered at about a third to a quarter of the price of the current way in which it is done. So I think it's a really attractive method that we can look at to introduce here into Pakistan as well. And given the high quality IT infrastructure that exists here, the market is really ripe for these kind of innovations. And it's something that we'll be exploring over the coming months.
Higher education is always very much expensive. When I was in the university, I know that it is very much expensive after the graduation when you go to the university, because you have to take the money from your parents because you are not doing the job. We have the opportunities, the Pakistani, those who have the resources, they prefer to go to Europe, England and America. What specifically Australia is offering that people, Pakistani students should go to Australia rather than England and America?
I think there's a couple of factors that are really relevant when looking at a choice of education. So if you look at where the future careers are going to come from, I think, and then you look at where the best ranked universities are in the world, I think you'll see that Australia features really highly. So if you look at areas like environmental engineering and technology, Australia has some of the best ranking universities. If you look at examples like digital media, animation, some of the work in that space, again, Australia is very, very highly ranked. Things like cloud computing, quantum computing, big data analysis. Australia is one of the leading edge players in this field. And things like sports development as well, which we may touch on a little bit later. It's another area that has been predicted globally to be one of the fastest growing service sectors. So these are the kind of areas that I think offer future career paths, and they're areas where Australia is extremely competitive. A second factor I think to think about is the actual ability to be able to do some work as well. So while you're studying in Australia, you're also allowed to do some part-time work. And at the end of your completion of a bachelor degree, you also have the opportunity to have a post-study work visa, which allows you to get work experience.
And that is of 2 years?
It can be 2 years, or if you do a PhD, it can even be up to 4 years. And getting that work experience on your CV is a really important thing for students. And I think it's something that makes Australia an attractive place. And then I think if you look at a third factor, it's about the learning methods in Australia. So our universities are very closely aligned with our businesses. So the curricula is really designed to make sure that graduates can actually find work very quickly, because they're being trained in a way that is relevant to the modern industry. And I think that's a really important factor to take into consideration. And of course, the lifestyle and the strong family connections that many Pakistanis have in Australia also makes it an attractive place to come and to study, because there's often a relative there or a friend and some kind of network that people can tap into.
Oh, it was a very nice interactive session. So now we will go for a break, and after break we will talk again with Nicola Watkinson. Welcome back. So Nicola, will you tell us that in which sectors the Pakistani and Australian companies are interacting more?
I think agriculture is a really interesting example for us to look at. Australia obviously has a very strong tradition in agriculture, as does Pakistan. And an example I'd like to give of where I think we can really see the two-way relationship growing and delivering mutual benefit is in the dairy sector. So what we've seen is at the moment the average production of a cow in Pakistan is about 5 litres of milk per day. Whereas in introducing some of the Australian know-how into the dairy sector, we've managed to increase that to over 20 and sometimes up to 25 litres of milk a day, which is a huge growth in productivity.
It is almost 5 times higher.
Yes, 4 to 5 times higher. So that means a lot more income for farmers and a lot more opportunity to service the market, which has got a growing number of people looking to be able to buy dairy products. So the way in which we've done that is not just by introducing Australian genetics. That's obviously part of it, and we've got a number of dairy cows throughout the different farming communities here in Pakistan now. But it's looking at the whole value chain. So it's about understanding how to feed the cow. I mean, cows are essentially little factories. If you put good food in at the front end, you can take good milk out. So we've been looking at different seed varieties that can grow in the kind of very harsh conditions that Australia and Pakistan have to deal with, and also ones that can deal with drought resistance, ones that can deal with salty and saline conditions, and been looking to introduce a range of those forage and pasture seeds so that the cows can actually get a much better nutritional input and therefore increase the quality of their milk. We've been working to look at how the layout of a dairy farm can really influence the productivity of the cow by having some basic shedding under which it can be protected in the great heat, having good matting so that it's comfortable. All of those things make a really big difference to how productive a cow can be. And obviously being healthy, so basic animal husbandry, has been an important element that Australia has been able to bring into the market. So we now have a number of farms across Pakistan that are utilising these kind of Australian expertise, and it's been a fantastic example of how we can collaborate together in order to deliver greater benefit. And I hope as we go forward, we'll be able to extend that into other areas. So we'll be able to move it perhaps more into value-added products. Already we've seen a lot of yogurts and curd and butter being developed, but I would like to see ice cream coming through and a whole range of other dairy elements that we can work on, including things like cheese and so on over time. And then associated with that, we also have the opportunity to look at a feedlot industry, because when you have large dairies, they produce a lot of calves, and some of those calves are male calves who obviously don't work very well in a dairy environment. So we're looking to see whether or not we can cultivate a new industry around commercial feedlots, both at a small scale for small scale farmers and at more commercial levels. And that can create new revenue for communities and also lead to great export opportunities, particularly into the Middle East, given that we have very good high quality halal abattoirs here that can be utilised in order to help to create that export pull into the Middle East market. So that's just one example, I think, of how Australia and Pakistan can collaborate in the agri-tech area. And we're really interested to pursue some of those opportunities. And because we have similar climatic conditions, I think we're very well placed to work together.
Okay, as we have seen that the US is also working in the dairy sector with Pakistan, and they have supported a lot. How was your experience with the working with the different groups, different companies in Pakistan, as you are working with the Nestle, Adams, and many other companies? How was your experience?
The experience has been very good. I mean, there's a huge capacity for growth here. So I think there's room for many players to be active in the marketplace. And different international companies have got different roles to play. So we certainly need companies like the Nestle's and the Danone's and others who can offer the distribution channels and some of the branding work that's necessary to create confidence in the dairy products. But we've also seen a lot of local Pakistani brands coming up, which are fantastic. And I'd certainly like to see more and more of those starting to build. So what Australia brings in is really that kind of services expertise, the technology and the assistance to the farmers here to create their own industry, rather than just coming in and being a player to bring in a particular brand. So I think we all have something to offer in the marketplace, and we all complement the different kinds of ways in which we can work here in the market.
So do you have any plan for the small farmers, because a very big number of small farmers are in Pakistan and they need the cooperation from Australia? Do you have any plan to help the small farmers?
Absolutely, and dairy is an example of that too. It's not just about commercial scale farms. We've done a lot of work to help small scale farmers to actually look at how they can access this kind of technology, because we're not talking about sort of rocket science here. If you can grow better forage grasses, you can feed your cows, whether it's 2 or 3 cows or 200 or 300 cows, and they will produce more milk. Similarly, in the feedlot area, it's not just about having a large feedlot. Even taking 2 or 3 of these male calves and learning how to fatten them up so that they attract a good price at the market can create really good and important new revenues for the small scale farmer. And through a number of our development programs and the work of groups like ACIAR, our major agricultural research group, we've been working with communities here in order to be able to help them in these areas, as well as in looking at more productive sheep and a whole range of other areas such as mangoes and other vegetables, citrus and so on. So there is a lot of work going on at the small scale, as well as then looking at how to scale that up and create real commercial businesses here.
Okay, after agriculture, let's talk about the mining sector. You have very good expertise in mining sector, and Pakistan has a vast area, especially in Balochistan, Sindh, and in upper Punjab, and southern Punjab. So do you have any plan for or any future agreement with the government or the private sectors in the mining sector?
Well, we can certainly see the opportunity here as you look at the energy security policies of the government, and they've been doing a lot of work to actually make the international community aware of the opportunities to participate in the marketplace here. Australia has one of the best mining technology and services companies anywhere in the world. If you look at our facts and figures on the website, you'll see we're number 1 or number 2, whether it be for coal or iron ore or gold or copper or lead or you name it. Australia has a lot of resources. So we've become very sophisticated over time in doing very good mining and offering both technologies, services and equipment that can help Pakistan to do the same. We have had a number of groups who have come from Pakistan to see the Australian technology at work in different mines in Australia, and we would very much encourage more of that to take place because we think there is the opportunity to complement the work that's going on here in the market, and obviously China and other countries have been very active in this space as well. And we think in particular areas of technology, Australia have some really unique value-added offerings, and that we can really work very closely here. On the government side, I think there's also some work we can help to do to look at the policy environment certainly looking at the Australian experience in terms of setting up the right environmental controls, and particularly what I'd call like the social right to operate is something that Australia has focused on a lot. And this is really about ensuring that any new mining operation involves a lot of community consultation, looks at how the regional development around that mine will work, what the economic benefits can be that can flow to the communities, and make sure that their concerns are addressed, whether it be about job creation opportunities or environmental concerns. These kind of things are an important part of addressing the overall demand for energy and looking at how to really grow the mining and energy sector here in Pakistan. And it's an area where I think there's a lot of opportunity for further collaboration.
Any opportunity in the wind energy sector?
In the wind energy sector, Australia does have some technologies, but to be honest, we don't really do a lot in the manufacturing of things like the wind turbines and towers now, because they can come and be done and manufactured locally here. Why would you make a really large piece of steel tower and make it in Australia and ship it all the way over here? You can manufacture it here locally and create jobs here, and I think that would be a far better outcome.
Okay, so what are the future areas of opportunities for Pakistani and Australian business community?
Well, we have a number of them, but one that I think is that would play to my own personal interests is in sports development. And as long as I'm not asked to talk about the recent result in the Ashes, I'm very happy to talk about other elements where Australia can work in sport. So sports development has a whole range of different aspects to it. It really looks at the start of things like elite sport development. So how can Australia perhaps work with Pakistan to really look at that elite coaching and help to build champions of the future, to build on the success and great track record that Pakistan already has. It also looks at the grassroots participation. So how do you actually train sports teachers at schools? How do you have scouting programs at the local community level? How do you encourage greater participation? Because if more people are playing sport, the more chance you have to identify greater talent pools. And this has really been the secret of Australia's success in many of our sports. And it's something that I think we have the opportunity to introduce here as well. Alongside that is the training. So there's a lot of training work that can be done in order to create new jobs in whole new industries. If you look at the global outlook for sports, you will see it's going to be one of the fastest growing areas of service delivery over the coming years as people become more health conscious and they really want to make sure that they do their best to actually stay fit and healthy and create, I guess, a better health outcome for themselves and for their children. So some examples of where we see new industries growing and where Australia can perhaps come in and deliver the training needed to help to stimulate those new industries would be in areas like sports management, for example. Also in areas, say, like sports nutrition. So if you're going to have a great elite athletes, they need to have the right kind of nutritional work. Sports physiotherapy, as we all do more sport, we all get sporting injuries from time to time. So sports physiotherapy is a very good area of opportunity. In addition to that, managing events is a great new area. As more and more people tune in to watch sport and more people participate in it, there's an enormous opportunity to make a lot more money out of managing stadiums better utilisation of those kind of infrastructure, and actually do a lot more work around the management of the event and the marketing that goes with it. So sports marketing and sports branding for some of the top teams and some of the local teams. So how you do merchandising better, how you actually manage your branding internationally as well as here within Pakistan is a great new area of opportunity. And then the things like sports journalism. So there's and of course fitness training, so franchising of the kind of new fitness centres. So there's a whole raft of new industries that are going to spring up around sport. And Australia is probably one of the leading players in this area because we have a huge passion for sport. And a number of our organisations and institutions would be very interested to come into markets like Pakistan and share that knowledge and work with your young entrepreneurs, people who are keen to look at the businesses of the future and create new jobs and new opportunities in Pakistan in areas that are fun to work in. And I think this could be one of them.
So nice of you, Nicola. It was a very nice interaction with you, and I'm very thankful to you that you have given us the time. And after 4 months, when you will come again, we will have another interactive session with you. Till next program, Allah.